I am female 19 and my parents' second child. I have 3 brothers, 21, 13, and 7, and a sister, 16. We grew up poor and our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends, etc., for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to shit. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. To top it off, we were well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face died a quick death when she said, "We're pregnant." I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity, because of my parents' stupidity, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great-uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money which only we could access when we turned 18. I said, hell no. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told them there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity, and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is a termination. What I was really worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' clutches, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers a screaming baby. I know what it's like, as I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that Mom and Dad were having another kid, she reacted with what? Again, I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be, and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay there till the lockdown was relaxed, but I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing and that I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. Oh, and my aunt never wanted kids, nor had any. One of the reasons she's my fave. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have, and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby UF. The intervention didn't do shit. So now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm done with these people. At it. I want to thank all of you for your kind and supportive comments and for the awards as well. Relevant comments. My parents can't touch the money. Only my siblings can withdraw it when they turn 18. My sister will be 18 in a year and a half, and I've explained to her that she's going to need it for college. Hopefully I was able to convince her. My brother will be staying there till the lockdown is lifted. I'm glad he's there actually, as he can be my eyes and ears for what's going on over there. His inheritance has already been spent on his college expenses. Update. Yesterday afternoon, I got a call from my older brother. He told me that my mom has miscarried. This is hardly surprising as she's in her 40s. I felt a huge wave of relief wash over me. My siblings' lives would not be worsened by my parents' insistence on adding another mouth to feed on an already tight budget. My sister would not be asked to give up her inheritance, so they could have money for their new baby. My brother told me my mom had been crying, and while I did feel bad for her, I was still glad to hear about the miscarriage. I feel like we all dodged a huge bullet. Bro asked me to move back in for a while to help comfort my mom. I told him I wasn't going to move in because 1, my college would reopen in a few days, and 2, I'm done with all the family drama. However, I did agree to come visit my mom, if only out of courtesy. In the evening, I went over to my parents' place. I took chocolate chip muffins for my mom, which I know she likes. My sister greeted me at the door and told me Mom had been in bed all day. After greeting my dad, I went into their bedroom. Mom was sitting up on the bed. I told her I was sorry about what happened and placed the muffins on the bedside table. She looked at me angrily, then threw the muffins at me. She screamed at me that she had lost her baby because of me. She said I had caused her stress, and it's what caused her to miscarry. She said I was probably glad her baby was dead, which is true, but of course I didn't point that out. She called me a witch and said I had wished this upon her. She was screaming so loudly. All my siblings and my dad came rushing to the bedroom. She yelled at me to get out. I did. I hugged my older brother and sister. Before I left, my Dee told me my mom was right, that my cruelty caused her to miscarry. I told him that was a grossly unfair accusation and reminded him that at Mom's age, it was quite common to miscarry. Then I walked out. I'm so done with my parents and their stupidity. I can only hope they won't try for another kid. Story 2. Not telling my sister-in-law about the life insurance policy my brother left for me. 7 years ago, my brother Alan made a seemingly rash decision to marry someone pretty suddenly, Jan. From very early on, they had issues that she often brought to everyone. This is not how the family operates. And if I am being honest, she made everyone extremely uncomfortable multiple times by airing her grievances to anyone who would listen. Nothing major, no abuse or cheating or anything. Despite that, my family was warm to her because really it was Alan's life and decision. We accepted her and her child from a previous marriage and were thrilled when they welcomed a child together. I say I'm confident that, at the very least, Alan was leery of her because he called me out of the blue to remind me I was the beneficiary of his insurance policy and that he'd like me to use that money to create education funds for the kids. This conversation took place 2 years ago. Well, Alan died in an accident about 3 months ago. Jan has continued to utilize the family for help, which is totally fine. I went through the process with the life insurance company and submitted all needed paperwork, and everything seemed fine. I 100% intend to abide by Alan's wishes. Everything was okay with Jan until recently. Jan started acting outwardly hostile, accusing my and Alan's mother of stealing Alan's money. Jan, likely with the urging and help of a third party, went digging into information about life insurance and learned that there is a policy, though she could not get additional info as she is not the beneficiary. This appears to be where and when she decided to start acting hostile. She is outwardly confrontational to my mom, not. I attempted to sit down with Jan and explain things with the help of a translator, believing that perhaps a language barrier and a lack of understanding of how these things work were creating problems. She is not originally from here. She went off screaming about how she's his wife, and the money is hers and my mother is stealing from her. I tried to explain that my mother has nothing to do with this, and I'm not stealing anything. She wants to hear none of it, and seems to waffle between my mother forced my brother to make her the beneficiary. She's not on it. And there was no beneficiary theirs. She also does not find it acceptable that this money will be going toward the children's educational needs. I don't understand why. She stormed off. I was mortified by her behavior. I left, apologized to the translator, and haven't attempted to speak with her again, although I've seen the children for already scheduled events. So, am I the asshole for not sharing this information with her initially? Aita. Several people have mentioned Jan perhaps being concerned about finances. Her finances are fine. Additional funds have been dispersed to her and will continue to be. The children are in no danger, nor is she. Comments. I think you just found the reason why your brother made you the beneficiary and didn't tell her. NTA. If your brother felt she needed to know, he would have told her. Up is Ente and is 100 doing the right thing. But she lost her partner of 7 years, is going to be a single parent for the second time, but now with 2 kids, and she feels betrayed by her partner with no way to reconsider it. Some empathy by people in this thread is probably in order. I wish we still had awards to give. A little grace would be beneficial here. She just found out her late husband, the adoptive biological father of her children, did not trust her, and made plans that cut her out of money he hid from her after he passed. Wouldn't it be emotionally easier to rationalize that away, to say the mistrust came from someone else, than to believe someone you loved, trusted, relied on, and now have to grieve didn't, or couldn't trust you and excised you from plans allegedly for your kid's future without your involvement, excised you from his death? Grief is a bear as it is. Give her time. She may or may not ever see this situation differently. But no matter how right or wrong anybody is, it may be easier to mourn the ones you love by making someone else the villain.